Dr. Neo-Cortex, everyone's favorite marsupial-despising mad scientist. Sometimes he's an evil genius with clever schemes and elaborate inventions that put the entire universe in danger, and other times he plays second fiddle to a talking mask. Today, we're gonna look at Neo-Cortex's role in every single Crash Bandicoot game and rank him from worthless to elite. The original Crash Bandicoot released back in 1996 and introduced the world to yet another evil video game doctor. He's conducting tests on the animals of Wumpa Island and mutates two bandicoots to be more humanoid. The female, Tawna, doesn't do much, but the male, Crash, gets trained up to be mega capable and is then set to be brainwashed by the Cortex Vortex to do the doctor's evil biddings for him. But of course, it fails, Crash escapes, and so commences the gameplay. Now, it is a terrible look that Cortex creates his main adversary, but he does do some good things to try and stop him, and the final boss fight taking place on his ship with the island burning in the background sets up a pretty electric atmosphere, not gonna lie. The battle itself isn't anything special, but the role overall is par for the course and deserves at least typical bad guy.
What does it take to be the Northeast's best cancer center? At Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, it takes looking at every cancer from every angle. And a care team that looks out for you and everyone you care for. It takes MSK.
At least typical bad guy. Crash 2 Cortex Strikes Back gives the bad guy his first nod in the title, which is definitely noteworthy, and his villainous antics are a major step up from last time. The game picks up right where the first left off, with Cortex falling from his airship and landing in a cave full of crystals, about the best place he could have found himself. He rebuilds his empire, some time passes, and we next see him with an entire space station that serves as an updated Cortex Vortex, now being able to brainwash an entire planet, which is, a decent bit more threatening. He needs more crystals to power it though, so he tricks Crash into collecting them for him, and while his argument isn't all that convincing, Crash trusts him for some unknown reason, and it comes around to bite him in the ass. By the time Crash finds out though, he already turned all the crystals over to Cortex, but after the ensuing chase to the space station, he stops Cortex, and they power up a laser back on Earth to shatter the Vortex to pieces. It doesn't work out for him, because it never does for the bad guys in fiction, but manipulating his enemy, getting exactly what he wanted, and posing a threat to a full-on planet is surely deserving of elite tier. In Crash Bandicoot Warped, the space station being blown up to end the last game sends a piece of rubble crashing into some temple and frees Uka Uka, who is apparently giving Cortex instructions to do some bad stuff in previous games, so he's the true brains of the operation. Cortex is incredibly apologetic and fearful of this masked dude, and lucky for him, he's forgiven, and the two work together to get the crystals back and take over the world. Again. This time though, Cortex takes more of a backseat, and Uka Uka is doing the grunt work and scheming himself. We see the duo throughout the game as Crash travels to different levels, but they're only physically encountered for the final fights, where Uka Uka takes on his brother Aku Aku, and Cortex battles the Bandicoot, and loses. After their first defeat, Cortex is ready to call quits, but Uka Uka doesn't give up, and sets him up for another showdown, beatdown. Yeah, Cortex isn't great here. He's almost at the mercy of Uka Uka, and even says he wants to retire after they're beaten that first time, which is pretty damn pathetic. It's his worst look of the trilogy. I don't want to go worthless since he is around quite a bit and serves as the final boss, but he's had way too many blunders, and they all caught up to him by the end, so a very weak look. Crash Team Racing has a somewhat traditional story mode, this time with Nitrous Oxide being the main baddie, and he wants to conquer the planet to make it one giant parking lot. Frickin' stellar motive right there. All the racers take part in the Grand Prix to stop that from happening, and Cortex is actually on our side for once, because if anyone's gonna take over the planet, it's gonna be him. You can play through the adventure mode as anyone, and Cortex has the same kart stats as Crash, so he's a viable option and a very average playable character. And since CTR Nitro Fueled is a carbon copy remake, I'm not gonna bother mentioning it later. The placement would be the exact same. Crash Bash is a party game with a bunch of different mini-games, and there's 8 playable characters, 4 representing the good guys and 4 for the villains, including our man of the hour. Each character has unique attributes that make them better or worse for certain events, which is a cool idea, but being a casual game, that doesn't sway very many people's decisions. Cortex is here, perfectly usable, and perfectly mid. The Wrath of Cortex makes him look like a damn formidable foe once again. It opens with a villains roundtable where they discuss future plans, and Cortex reveals he's been working on a super weapon that can defeat Crash once and for all.
Get ready to face my wrath, Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
He also bioengineers a new life form to rival Crash, Crunch Bandicoot, whose over-the-top muscular figure is sure to intimidate this undersized marsupial. Yeah, he still wins though. Even with Cortex and Crunch tag teaming against him, he comes out on top. And Cortex once again gets blamed by Uka Uka for their defeat and chased around in the ending. I wouldn't put this failure entirely on Cortex though. The space station blowing up was because of Uka Uka's own anger issues. Cortex hatched the whole plan, developed and brainwashed a new, stronger Bandicoot, and held his own in the final fight. It's actually one of his most elite looks in this series. The first of the Crash Bandicoot GBA games, dubbed The Huge Adventure, features another pretty diabolical scheme by Dr. Cortex. He invents the planetary minimizer, a shrink ray, and uses it to, well, shrink the entire planet, and he literally holds it in the palm of his hand, but he makes it very clear that he doesn't want to destroy the world, just rule it, or else he just... However, he doesn't stop you between levels like some other games, and is only really seen again for the final boss, where he's shooting lasers at Crash until all the crystals get taken out, which makes his machine unstable and somehow causes him to merge with his minions to create the Mega Mix, which is a pretty darn scary monstrosity. Unfortunately though, there's no formal fight against him. He just chases Crash around the space station until he escapes and the entire thing blows up. Now yes, he still gets scolded by Uka Uka at the beginning, but everything done here was his doing, and this final monster form is very intimidating, so he's on the higher end of typical bad guy here. Crash 2 Entranced doesn't feature Cortex in the main story, but he does make a playable appearance in the game's multiplayer mode, which is just bonus content for those who had a GBA link cable, so worthless. Crash Nitro Kart is similar to the original CTR, only this time, the game features a team mechanic, and Neo headlines Team Cortex. In the story mode, all the characters get abducted and are forced to race in the Galaxy Circuit, which isn't the strongest look, but since every character faces the same fate, he's going average. Crash Bandicoot Purple, Ripto's Rampage, is a sister title to Spyro Orange The Cortex Conspiracy, meaning the games feature an overarching plot, where Cortex and Ripto, the villains from each series, team up and work together to take down their nemesis. Their plan was to disguise Ripto's minions as Crash and Spyro to trick the other into thinking they were bad guys, but they eventually see right through it and join forces to stop this evil duo. In the Crash half, the main baddie is Ripto, and while we do fight Cortex and Ripto together for the finale, it hardly makes up for his lack of presence here, so it's going kinda weak. As for Spyro Orange, he's a more active antagonist, and while it results in the same thing, he looks more like a typical bad guy here to me. Cortex is seen more than ever in Crash Twinsanity, but he's not the threat he was in previous games. To kick things off, he tries to lure Crash into a fight with Mecha Crash by disguising himself as the dude's sister, lipstick and all, and it's freaking awful. Crash beats up another one of his robots, and the two fall into some strange cave and proceed to fistfight each other in a cartoonish ball to work their way back to the surface. Once they do, these new aliens, the evil twins, threaten to steal Cortex's brain, which makes Bro terrified, and he runs off in the most pathetic way possible. Crash even has to save Cortex from quite a few silly predicaments that make him look like more of a laughingstock than any game thus far. Now, he is on Crash's side, contributes his base, and has a giant weapon to take down the aliens, but I can't get over that bad stuff. These are some of the lowest lows for the Doctor. Goes to show that more screen time isn't always a good thing. I mean, Crash literally uses him as a sled at one point, so it pretty much nullifies those better moments and makes for a very weak showing for him. I mean, the cover art has Crash opening a can of whoop-ass on Cortex and him screaming in pain. Just brutal. Crash Tag Team Racing is pretty similar to past racing games, featuring Cortex as a playable character and a story mode, which Cortex actually has a little more distinction in. He tries to take over Von Clutch's motor world for himself, and while Willy Wumpa Cheeks is the face of all the bad stuff going on, he straight up pulverizes him at the end of the game and almost takes out Crash, but his vehicle gets taken out by a chicken. I wish I were kidding. It's the first time he's been the main antagonist in a racing game, so I gotta give him some additional props. He's a pretty typical bad guy. Crash Boom Bang is kinda a follow-up to Crash Bash, as a party game of sorts, and while there is a story mode featuring a little Cortex screen time, it's not much, and doesn't make him more than your average unlockable character. Crash of the Titans starts off as a great look for Cortex, but quickly unwinds into one that's not so savory. Uka Uka teaches him a new skill called Mojo Mutation, and it allows him to turn everyday creatures into mutant titans that follow his every command, which is quite the OP ability. But after failing to beat Crash early in the game, Uka Uka fires him and puts his niece, Nina Cortex, in charge of operations from there. They continue to build the giant Doominator robot that he was planning without him, and he's held captive for the remainder of the game, which is a horrible look. And being basically a damsel in distress forces me to put this into worthless. Mind Over Mutant takes place shortly after the last game, and this time, Cortex takes back his rightful place as the main villain. He's got yet another space station, and now uses a new machine called the NV to transmit Bad Mojo to take control of the mutants once again. He does use Dr. Embryo to make his plan a reality, but it's clear that he's the one in charge, and he even uses Uka Uka behind his back to give the NV its power, which makes him seem even more capable. And the final boss is an awesome last stand by Cortex. He consumes a vial of mutant formula and becomes a super jacked up and powerful version of himself, which makes for a killer final boss, one of the most intimidating Cortexes we've ever seen. Now yes, he throws a little tantrum afterwards and it destroys his base, but I don't care. This is still going elite. After over a decade-long hiatus, Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time brings the cast back for another adventure, and it picks up right where Crash 3 Warped left off. Cortex, Uka Uka, and Entropy are all trapped, but after the Masked Man exerts all of his strength, he somehow rips open the fabric of space and time before he passes out, so the other two villains escape and leave him behind. From there, Entropy takes the lead in their wrongdoings, and after Cortex fails to win yet another fight versus the Bandicoots, Entropy reveals he was plotting behind his back all along, and is gonna destroy the universe with all of them in it, so they have no choice but to team up. He travels alongside the heroes for a decent chunk of the game, and even gets a few solo playable segments, which is the first time in a mainline game, and it's honestly a really cool addition. His gameplay is really solid. He has a dash to move quickly, and a blaster that can turn enemies into platforms, which makes for some pretty unique levels. Once Entropy gets stopped, Cortex takes the opportunity to go back in time and try to prevent himself from ever even creating Crash, and does take down his past self to stop him, but after the present-day Bandicoot crew shows up, they once again put an end to his plans. Actively helping to stop the bigger threat, and then turning on the Bandicoots without blinking to re-establish himself as the main villain is pretty damn cold, and his competence throughout the entire game makes a strong case for one last elite tier. Crash Team Rumble is a multiplayer-focused game with no real story mode. Cortex is here as a playable character, and that's really it, so the placement is self-explanatory. And there you have it.